think that has one of the best views from the terrace up there in London.
This is London.
I mean, I know St Pancras is deep in the heart and soul of Londoners. I think it's a monstrosity.
This is BBC Radio London.
Joe Good. Hello and a very good afternoon to you, and it looks like the sun is just about to come out as well. Certainly, I've been listening to the radio station throughout the day, and keeping with this sort of punctuation point, really, there is a different tone, certainly, to the whole station today. It's an opportunity to just sit and think and reflect on our lives living here in London, people who are listening to us online, loads of expats all over the world emailing in, just talking about, this city and what Grenfell threw up, actually, and how we've moved on, if indeed we have. Well, we've spoken to my next guest a few times over the last year. Helena Thompson runs SPID, a theatre group that rehearses and performs in estates near Grenfell. They have been very involved in fundraising for the survivors, fighting to ensure the victims are not forgotten. Well, Helena has now written a new play called The Burning Tower, and it explores the history of social housing and the shadow cast by the tragedy. Helena joins me now with Montrese Henry, who is a member of the company. Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Thank you for coming in. Now, Montrese, I haven't met you before.
No.
I love your name, and we think it's French.
You.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's just the most beautiful name.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Helena, because you've become like an old friend now. I have seen you a couple of times. And I was trying to remember the theatre that I know you rehearse in a lot of times. It is the old bus station. What is it called?
It's called the Playground Theatre.
That's right. And have you performed there, or is that your rehearsal space?
We used it for our Grenfell Matters fundraiser. We've got a whole campaign to champion the value of social housing, and that was the space we used to raise money for survivors and those affected.
Tell me about this play.
The Burning Tower was inspired by a youth programme that SPID runs called Living History. And that programme involves young people interviewing local estate residents about their experiences of social housing. Now, the Burning Tower used that inspiration to explore the history of social housing and to discover what lessons we can learn from Grenfell.
Isn't that interesting? Because I don't know when you started to listen, you were probably on your way in, if you've heard any of my callers this afternoon, because
Yes.
We've had all different generations calling up, people who lived in the area in the 50s, people living in the 60s, people saying, it was better back then, everyone knew where they were meant to be, they knew their boundaries. People, one woman just said, we never crossed that side of the road because that wasn't our side of the road, which for us is quite shocking, because you just think, surely we're all in this big old melting pot together, aren't we? Surely we should all celebrate each other's lives.
I think that's right. I think Grenfell has shown us the value of community. I think when you hear from those affected, they speak of solidarity and connections and of shared history. Montrese has lived in the area for a long time, and certainly history is a big part of community life around
Montrese,
there.
are you in the play?
I'm deciding whether to be in the play or not, because I wanted to be on more of the producing side, because I'm not a great actress. Are
you at college, at school?
No, I'm not.
You're not?
No, I have 2 daughters. So yeah.
What? Honestly, sorry. I honestly thought you were still at school.
No,
I'm not
no,
sitting
not
here
at
flattering you, but I'm really surprised.
Oh, you are?
So you've got 2 daughters.
I do, and because of that, I think it's really important that we do things like this, especially for young people, because I think it's critical that they know their history and we know where we came from and everything like that. So,
were you born in that area?
I was.
And your children were, obviously, then?
One of my children.
So you're very qualified to talk about this, because that's your manor, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And before Grenfell, what did you think about living there?
I love living there, and I can honestly say when I moved out, I regretted it in the first week. And
why?
Because as you go up, you get to know everyone, and everyone there, they say hello to each other, and you can just have conversations with people in the street, and it's the familiarity towards everyone there. And I think, Grenfell has connected everyone once again, and I think we did get to a stage where where it didn't feel too community. And now
it was them and us.
Yeah, a little bit, I still think it is.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of that?
for example, a friend gave me an example yesterday. So, for example, we have people who can't afford to use the buses on one side of the street and people with Lamborghinis on the other side of the street. So it's, it can be difficult and it can be very confusing when you're young. Yeah. Because you don't have a connection and then all of a sudden you're thrown into this like world that's full of politics and you're like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah. You said you moved away.
I did.
Have you moved back now? Or you still?
No, I'm trying to move back.
So where have you moved to?
I am now in Imperial Wharf.
Gosh, so you've moved right away.
I have. It's not too far. It's only a train.
Very weird for you, though, isn't it?
It's
were
very
you
lonely.
away when Grenfell happened? Were you?
I had moved out exactly, I think, 4 months before.
That must have been so strange for you.
It was very, very strange, and it still kind of is. And I find that I haven't made so much connections with people in the new area. I don't know if it's just because I'm older and it's kind of hard to make connections like brand new, and it's kind of easy when you're young. But it's very strange. What's
it like having young kids in that area?
It can be very lonely. I mean, since my eldest has started going to nursery now, it's, you pick up a few mum friends. But it's difficult because my whole family is still in Ladbroke Grove.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. And that what happened a year ago must have made you feel you should be there.
Exactly.
With them. I can understand that because we had people...
And the morning that it happened, I came and I got together whatever I could and I got on the train with my girls and I bought formula milk and other things.
Really?
Yeah.
I can, as I say, we have people on that day who expats listening all over the world who were just phoning up and emailing and saying, it feels so weird not to be in London when we can just feel the mood, we can just feel the shock.
I think it's still quite raw like that. I do. I think that I actually can't believe that it's been a year.
Yeah. Helena, I'm really interested just in how you put something like this together. You say that the company had been interviewing people. So is that on tape or is it in print? And how do you put that into a performance?
Well, we've been carrying out research actually prior to the fire as part of our Living History programme, and we do that in a number of ways. So Montrese is part of the Kensington Stories project along with other young people, and there are interviews with local residents. The interviews are turned into transcribed oral history testimonies. We use them in films, we use them in radio. So I had a lot of material, in some ways prophesying what could have been foreseen, showing that there were a lot of complaints made. I always say it wasn't the cladding or the fridge that killed those people, it was being ignored. So we could see the community and the love and the hardship that was all tied up in social housing in North Kensington, and those voices echo through the play. There's really a lot that we can learn if we listen and we're willing to respect the dignity and the wisdom and the suffering and the experience of those who've been through Grenfell.
Absolutely. And you as an actor, because the whole theatre acting is based on sensitivity and listen and just feeling how the people around you, that's part of what you are as an actor, is to pick up on sensitivity. You must have heard a completely different tone in voices from people being interviewed, because I know just from listening to people a year ago the anger that was coming out, and then if you just look, last night I was watching, and when I was over at Holland Park, it's a reflective, quiet, trying to make sense of it type, a completely different tone, isn't it?
I think that's right. I was always impressed by the tone of those speaking out from Grenfell.
Really?
Yes, I think it's not a coincidence to hear someone like Montrese, who lost someone in the fire, speaking with love and compassion and kindness, because that's what community gives you. So these are people who know the value of community. The heart is the political symbol that they're using to push for change. Of course, there is anger and there is rage, but on the whole, there's wisdom and there's a keenness to be heard, to say, look, community matters, communal living matters, mixing up different classes matters. And that was really the inspiration to say, well, what can we learn? What good can we get from this? What positive social change? Simple things like, we need to get on-site management of estates, and we need longer leases for the people who are living and working there. We need investment. We can't be pulling them down and running them down. There is a lot that can be done, and that is all coming out of the voices of those affected by Grenfell.
Where is this production going to be?
It's happening in council estates around the UK before it comes back to our base.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very exciting.
So you're like ambassadors.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I do think that's great.
To get the word out.
I'm not trying to... everyone will go, here we go. When she was an actress. But when I was an actress, seriously, and I was doing school tours in Yorkshire, but we'd go in a van and we would just go into schools on estates, and the joy of having a theatre company turning up, but also the power that you have, far more power than on a West End stage, because you're in amongst the people. And for a lot of these kids, it was the first time they'd ever seen a theatre company at all, or been taken into a fantasy world. Do you know what I mean? Apart from a television set. Go on,
Well, I discovered SPID when I was 8 because I actually lived
Have you
in
been going
Kensal
that
House.
long?
Yeah, I stopped going for a while because I moved house. But a couple of I think it was at the beginning of this year, I thought, let me connect back with SPID and see how they're doing. And of course, I wanted to get involved.
Please tell me you're Arts Council funded.
This tour is Arts Council funded, and we've got a lot of backing for the London run, which is in Kensal House Estate, 10 minutes from Grenfell, with the Bush Theatre marketing it. Yeah,
wow.
So
it's quite
this is
becoming a massive company.
Yeah, it's
isn't
a big project for us.
Montrese, you've got to go with it. Surely you're going to go with it, aren't you?
Yeah, of course I am.
So it's going on estates all over the country. Then when does it come to London?
It opens in Kensal House Estate with the Bush Theatre in mid-September.
Right, Kensal House Estate is open. It's part of the Open House London Architectural Festival. So that's going to be on Saturday the 22nd. Is that right?
That's right. So we've actually got that happening at the same time as the Burning Tower opening. Right. And all of this is part of our Grenfell Matters campaign to raise the profile of social housing.
And Helena, if people want to see what SPID's getting up to, how can they do that? Is that best to go to your website?
There are 2 plugs that I generally make. For tickets to the Burning Tower, you can get them from Bush Theatre. So go to the Bush Theatre's website. If you want to get involved as a young person like Montrese, who is under 30 years old and takes part in these really important, fun, relevant living history free sessions on Saturdays, then you email youth@spidtheatre.com.
And they're free.
They're free.
Listen, can I say, Matrice, you know I'm going to do this because Helena then pointed out that you knew someone, and I hate making you go through this, but these are it's individual stories that literally hit all of us.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good that people speak about the people that they've lost, because then everyone else can see that the people who lost their lives in these buildings really mattered, and they were somebody's brother, sister, uncle, father, like that. Many people did know him, and obviously I knew him too, and his name was Yasin. And me and Yasin met when we were 3. We went to primary school together, and we just kind of grew up from there. And when we left primary school, we went to separate secondary schools, but because we lived in the same kind of estates and everything like that, you'd still meet up with each other on the street. And I could talk to Yasin for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, just stand there in the street speaking to him. And he was so kind, and it's just so strange that he's gone, because when I go there now, obviously when you've kind of moved away, you just expect to go back and everything be the same.
Do you see his family?
So
no. You've got to move back. You have got to move back, and you've got to go out on the road. Maybe, I don't know how, with your 2 kids, but you must be part of this production. I really enjoyed meeting you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
they'll enjoy playing the production.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
Just a bit of an actress.
Really, already. It's really great to meet you, Montrese Henry. Thank you very much. And Helena Thompson. And you go through the Bush Theatre and you can get all the details. And
That's right.
Honestly, I know... Well, I have some idea what it is like running a theatre company, and you're extraordinary. You really are. So well done. Thank you so much for coming in. My thanks to that wonderful theatre company. I can't believe how they've grown since they've come on this radio station. Every time they come in, they've got more and more funding and growing bigger and bigger. And their connection with the Bush Theatre, wonderful theatre in Shepherd's Bush. That's the website to go to if you want tickets, and their workshops are absolutely free.
One city, our beloved London.
This is London.
It really is a sea of colour.
0800 731 2000, that is our new number.
This is BBC Radio London.
Joe Good.